The Secretary of War's memo says, and I quote, high performers on fitness tests may be granted exemptions, but only within defined limits. High performance does not excuse noncompliance with body composition standards. What I'll say first off is that those sentences do seem to contradict each other.
Yeah.
You can be granted exemptions, but you cannot be excused. I'm guessing if I went on Google and asked for like synonyms for excusal, I would find exemption.
This week's episode is brought to you by Teamworks. If you have performance data scattered across apps, spreadsheets, group chats, it means things get missed. Teamworks brings it all together. Training, nutrition, scheduling, communication, all in one platform built for the people responsible for readiness. Learn more today at teamworkstactical.com.
Team, this week is a hot take. This is new stuff. We're going to give you the skinny on on the new skinny stuff. ABCP. What is guys, welcome
I think we have achieved a first, Drew. I don't know if you even know if you noticed it.
What?
You use an Army acronym without defining it instead of me using an Army acronym without defining it.
What acronym did I just use?
ABCP.
Oh, you're right. That's, it's sad. That doesn't even register in my head as an acronym anymore.
I know. It starts to lose meaning. That's semantic satiation in action.
Damn it. You're right. Team, welcome to another week of Moms. We had to shift some things around. We had some other things we wanted to talk about this week, but then all hell broke loose and several years of progress got rolled back. Is it fair to say?
Ooh, we're getting kind of political already, huh?
Is that a hot take? Sorry. Maybe not. Maybe we're moving forward. Regardless, change has happened. They say, what is it that they say? The one thing in life that's inevitable is change, and the one thing everyone hates is change.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are. What's going on?
New Army body composition guidance is out. Army Directive 2026-13. I think the force knew some version of this had been coming ever since I think September 30th, 2025 SecWar memo.
I thought it was a joke on Reddit. I didn't think it was like a real.
No, like we had a memo from the Secretary of War back in September, and then we had additional guidance from the Undersecretary back in December. And I think at like the Pentagon level, they started putting out that like this is like in effect as of January or something. Kind of wacky. But the individual services have taken their time on rolling this one out. I know like the Air Force was already doing a version of waist height ratio, so it was a little different for them. But the Army finally dropped their guidance, and I think the Army's is a bigger change than a lot of people were expecting. It has some follow-on second and third order consequences. I think we will dive into a few of those here in our conversation. However, I have glanced over at our notes document and realized, Drew, you and I agreed to talk about something before we dove into ABCP stuff. Do you recall?
Oh yeah. Our new phase of Long and Strong.
Yeah.
The problem
we got him on the hook to learn all the new news, but now we're gonna
let him
know. This frankly, team, for the next roughly hour, I don't know how long we'll talk about this. We're gonna go into policy stuff, which, based on my interactions on Instagram, based on listens to the podcast, you guys freaking love policy changes. But I would suggest, and by love, I mean love to hate for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I would suggest that if we spent half as much time focused on like training as we do on like worrying and debating about testing and policy, we would not have to worry about testing and policy nearly so much.
That's probably true.
So we're gonna take a quick detour for a few minutes here and talk about an option that we offer for training
Well, there's a longer video on this that's going to come out.
on our
We've got
YouTube. If you don't know that exists, that's where
yes
you'll
on our
find it.
YouTube. It's also going to be on the website because I got got ahead of myself and wrote a blog basically diving into this next phase of training for Long and Strong. Long and Strong being the programming that we offer for folks. It's just an ongoing kind of team program. We've got quite a few folks on board, so it's a fun little community.
If you're wondering about the vibes of the program, it's
High vibes.
always concurrent training. Like it's always going to be a mix
Yeah.
of strength and endurance, but
It
with
is-
shifting emphasis in different phases.
And it's not periodized for those of you out there on Instagram who are still mad at me. Future episode to come on that one. But yeah, it's effectively, and I know this is going to sound like an ad, but like all of the training philosophy we ramble about, it basically gets distilled into that. So if you're curious about what all of this actually looks like in real time, go take a look. I say that because this next phase that we're launching, called Workhorse, is probably the most fun I've had from a programming standpoint, because I'm actually turning a lot of the decision making over to the athletes. And there's a reason for that. I've become more and more curious lately about like creating autonomy for athletes at scale. The reason I say that is because with embedded human performance programs, you might have one coach for like 1,000 athletes. That's a wild ratio. There's no way in hell you can truly individualize training for that many people. So what ends up happening is you end up with a lot of templated programs, and that doesn't necessarily solve for much. Like it addresses the median, but you've got outliers on either end who just aren't going to get after that type of training. So something I talk about all the time is constraints-based programming, which is effectively a way in which you prescribe like left and right limits, and then you let the athletes kind of navigate within that. So there's still like some rules in place, but you give athletes some sense of choice when it comes to the training itself. And so I've been playing around with that concept a little bit with Long and Strong because it's a little bit of a microcosm of H2F. There's far more athletes than I could ever like one-on-one program for. And in the last phase, the one we just finished, we played around with the idea of, instead of programming like Monday do this, Tuesday do this, Wednesday, we did a little bit more of what I think you mentioned a few weeks back, where you kind of have a checklist for the week. A little bit limited by software, but regardless, folks could kind of set up the week however they wanted to. With this next phase with Workhorse, we're taking that to the next degree, and I'm just kind of giving instructions on what work capacity sessions should look like, and then providing a menu of movements that you can choose from, and you kind of create your own session. And I'm curious how folks respond to it. So we'll see. It starts, let's see, if this gets launched Sunday, it starts on Monday. You can sign up on the website.
Shameless plug. There is a week free to try it if you want to go
That's
that route
true.
and just
You
dabble before you commit. And as Drew is talking, Drew is the lead coach for Long and Strong. He controls all this programming. I'm just a nerd who banters with him on the podcast. But in that capacity, I did a little quick review to see what research is out there on this. Not nearly as much as you would hope for in the strength and conditioning space, but there is a lot of research on athlete autonomy in the sports psychology space. But I'll shout out a couple that came up really quickly on a quick search. Amoros and colleagues, 2007, found that across like high school and collegiate athletes, results indicated that the degree to which athletes perceived their coaches to be autonomy supportive significantly predicted the athlete's perceived competence, autonomy, sense of relatedness, and all of those in turn predicted their motivational orientation. And that was true regardless of gender or level of competition.
There you go.
And then Halperin and colleagues, what year is this? 2018. They do observe that this strategy has received little attention in the strength and conditioning field, despite being extensively studied in sports psychology and motor learning. In those fields, it has been shown to improve motor learning, improve performance, improve motivation, So they explore applications of that same literature to strength and conditioning specifically.
And what's I think interesting about this, and I talk about it in the like program specific video, but coaches are always complaining. Well, complaining is probably the wrong word. Coaches are always talking about how there's just not enough time to program for that many athletes. And when you use an approach that's more like this, you actually are able to program more quickly because you're not dictating every single thing that's happening across an entire day or week or phase. You're creating the constraints, within your first, I use the word phase, but within your first, whatever you want to call it, week. And then you're just kind of letting them ride that out until they stop adapting to it. And that's where I think some of the creativity comes from, because I'm opening that aperture up a little bit. And I'm just curious to see how people respond to it. They can challenge themselves and create very challenging sessions. If they're feeling good on the day, they can dial it back a little bit, but everybody still falls within the same left and right limits, and you're still getting the same stimulus. You're able to then like blast that out to large numbers of people. So again, if you want to see what that looks like, there's a free week and you can join for the ride.
All right, that's one side quest done.
Boom.
Another side quest, and this may involve me asking Drew to do some webmaster work. We'll see.
Okay.
Drew's not on Instagram very much, so he probably hasn't seen it yet, but I posted a question. Like right before I left work, I was like, I should check with the followers of the page before I like make assumptions about some of the stuff we're about to talk about with body composition. So I asked 2 questions really. One, has anybody out there observed fit soldiers who are failing this new standard? And or has anybody observed soldiers who were failing the old standard but are now suddenly considered in compliance because we changed the standard? And I will say parts of the responses I got did not surprise me at all. And parts of the responses I got, and it's only been up for a little bit, so I imagine I'll get more responses over the next 24 hours. Some of the responses did genuinely surprise me. So a few things in there. One, a lot of people have observed significant numbers of soldiers who, under the standards we had until yesterday, as of the recording, are now considered in compliance. They were considered overweight under the old standards. The new standards are more lenient for most people, I think. So a ton of people have just graduated from the body composition program because what they're at is now considered good enough. That was not a huge shock to me. Another population that I have heard from in a couple cases that was not too big a surprise to me is postpartum women. Especially shorter postpartum women are going to be the most affected by this. There's some unique factors at play there. Relationship between the height of the navel where the measurement is taken and where their hips are. Hopefully this is not like a total shock to people, but like pregnancy and childbirth can both widen your hips and move your belly button downward. That combination can put you in a uniquely tough position for this new measurement protocol. And then one population that I was very surprised by, to be honest, a whole bunch of like really fit but shorter and stockier men are also getting tripped up by this one, which brings me to what I might ask Drew to do, which is to create a web form on our website where you can submit like gender, height, weight, waist measurement, waist to height ratio, and then some like we'll probably have a couple like notes fields where you can like AFT score should probably be on there.
AFT score? And then
AFT score should be in there, and then like a notes field where you talk about, is there any underlying medical condition here? Are you like recently postpartum, or like any like stuff we should know about your fitness beyond the AFT? Already heard from one guy like who's like a serious competitor in his chosen sport at like the national level and is failing this new standard. That's pretty wild. And his sport is like very applicable to the military.
Can you say what it is, or will that give him?
I'm trying to keep it pretty vague because if I like identify too much about him, I'll give it away, and I do not have permission to do that. But yeah, I was surprised by the number of like, not even like really short, just like slightly short guys who just have like wider torsos. Probably gonna try and collect some data maybe collect some stories for people who are okay with having their stories told. Because this is interesting stuff. We're going to talk about, like, I know we've gotten ahead of ourselves here. For the next few minutes, we'll talk about what the actual policy changes are, and we'll discuss some of the ramifications and how they affect folks in these unique situations.
Short kings, we call them. I think that's what they're called.
I believe so.
So yeah, for folks that have no idea what we're talking about, there was, is it safe to say massive change?
Yeah.
There was
I think so.
a massive, and it felt relatively direct, like it felt pretty quick, like it just all of a sudden happened. There was a massive change to the Army body composition standard. Give us the what was the background? What was the memo? I don't recall what the memo said in September of last year.
Sure. These will be linked in the show notes, but there's 3 documents people should be aware of. Like, if all you care about is the current policy, there's only one document you got to look at. But if you want the context and the history, there's 3 documents you got to look at. The first one is on September 30th, Secretary Hegseth published a memo titled Military Fitness Standards. This covered a lot of things. It is the reason we now have the combat field test. It changed frequency of testing for the services. It means that PT scores now have to be on evaluations. Did a lot of things. But within that, it specified waist to height ratio as the method all the services are going to use on body composition assessment. And I believe it also mandated that it be evaluated twice per year. He only puts like a couple sentences into that. And he said that more guidance would come out within 60 days from the Undersecretary War for Personnel and Readiness. That happened. So fast forward a couple months, December 18th, 2025, we get a memo titled Additional Guidance on Military Fitness Standards. This expanded on it and like laid out some of the methodology, where to take the measurements, how to do the ratio, all that kind of stuff. Still not like super detailed. It's a 2-page memo. It's straightforward.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Why'd they screw up the acronym?
Waist to height ratio?
It's, for folks that aren't reading, it's capital W, capital H, lowercase t, capital R.
You have identified something that Reddit is also concerned about. I'll actually refer to Reddit a few times throughout this because I've been watching the discussion going on there.
Reddit's beautiful on this, actually.
And interestingly, that's a question I can answer very directly. The Department of War did not invent waist to height ratio as a measurement, nor did it invent the capital W, capital H, lowercase t, capital R acronym for it as the standard acronym. You can actually find that in a bunch of literature. I will discuss some of that probably towards the end of the episode, unless you want me to do the evidence right now. But
I just don't get it.
The lowercase t is not the 2, but it's not waist to height ratio. That's not what it's abbreviating. It is distinguishing the H between height and hips.
What?
Because there's people in the body composition world and like measuring health outcomes have explored all sorts of anthropometric measurement techniques that are like rapid field expedient to get at health outcomes.
So height is HT.
Yeah. Just H would be hips.
What do they do for hands?
I don't think waist to hand ratio has been investigated as a potential ratio.
Or hamstrings. There's a lot of H anatomy.
Maybe if you're going to go be an anthropometry expert, you can introduce new H distinctions.
Anthropometry.
Listen.
And anthropometry. Anyway.
At this juncture, I will make a quick statement that I think we might return to later, which is I did just say that there's a bunch of research on waist height ratio, and there is. It is not made up, and it frankly it is good actually.
Okay.
But the problem is what it is designed to do and what it is not designed to do. Drew, have you seen the nonstop, kind of annoying hot takes on the internet about how BMI is not useful for measuring an individual person's body composition?
Of course.
which is fun to post about and really stupid because it was not designed to do that.
It wasn't
BMIs,
designed for individuals.
no, it was designed for
Correct.
population level estimates. It's really
Yes.
easy to collect that data. It's the reason when you walk into your doctor's office, you probably step on a scale and you probably get your height measured because you can collect it in a couple seconds and it's really easy. And we have that data for huge portions of the population and we can look at correlations with it. Waist to height ratio has emerged in the literature as something essentially just as easy to measure, but more accurate at the population level than BMI. BMI is a very rough estimate. Waist height ratio, little bit more accurate for predicting
At the population
things
level.
at the population level for things like cardiometabolic risk factors, right? That does not mean, just because it's a better population level tool, that does not mean it is a great individual level tool, which is why you're going to see outliers.
And they're going to get kicked out of the Army.
Unless something changes, that is a distinct possibility.
And let's see, just scrolling through these notes. So like I said, this is effective immediately. So actually, by the time you guys hear this, it's past due. It went into effect on Tuesday, the 7th.
Yeah, it was published on the 7th. It went into effect on the 7th. Everybody has to have a measurement recorded in ATIS, which is, I'm still catching up. We've changed acronyms. DTMS is what I grew up with.
Army something.
Honestly, this is embarrassing. I'm a reservist now, so I still should know things like this. But nope, that's the wrong ATIS. I'm from the DTMS era, guys. Sorry.
Arms, toes.
Nope. Army Training Information System.
I was trying to think of an I. What's a body part that starts with an I? Can you think of one?
Oh, like the first one that came to mind is index finger, but
index finger and
iliac crest. Actually, iliac crest is relevant to this conversation.
There you go. So ATIS, everyone knows, stands for arms, toes, iliac crest, and sacrum.
Sure. Drew is going to be the person who's learning along with you.
Yeah, I should have caveated that. I intentionally did not prepare for this at all, which is
Drew,
kind
not
of
a
funny.
big policy guy.
Not a big policy guy, but it's funny because like we're recording this on the 8th, so this memo came out yesterday. So at work today, very much a talking point, and I tried to like not pay attention because I knew we were doing this tonight, and I wanted to be everyman who has
Drew,
no clue.
I worry often about getting fired for what I say on this podcast. And never once on this podcast have I said, during work today, I was purposely not paying attention.
I should, that's a fair point. What I should say is I did not dive into this as much as I could have given the resources at my disposal because I wanted to be somewhat naive.
Well, only one of us works full time in a job where this is going to have direct ramifications.
Yes.
And that's Drew.
Yeah. And I knew I was going to learn more about this talking to you than I would from reading emails.
That's fair. I'll get you caught up. Don't worry.
Thank you. This is the episode.
Honestly,
you dream of.
You should be billing this time as work for your day job.
Point.
I'm doing professional development for you.
That's a good point. I'll ask my new commander what she thinks about that.
To finish the effective immediately part, like I mentioned, all soldiers, and I believe this is regardless of component, so like National Guard and Reserve as well, I believe are required to have a waist height ratio recorded in ATIS within 90 days. ATIS doesn't roll off the tongue like DTMS does. I don't know what that is.
Neither of them roll off the tongue.
No, but I don't know. We'll see.
Do you say ABCP or ABCP?
Where we put the emphasis on which syllable?
Because I've heard you say ABCP.
Yeah, I do.
I say ABCP. It
just feels wrong.
It feels weird when you say it.
No, it feels weird when you say ABCP.
Yeah. Do you say Bojangles or Bojangles?
I don't know if I've said that out loud in years.
Have you never been to a Bojangles?
No, I don't think I've ever been to a Bojangles.
Oh, man. Considering our largest state listening wise is North Carolina, I'm going to apologize on behalf of Alex to all of you guys. Anyway, ATIS, DTMS, ABCP.
Everybody's got to have a scoring within 90 days. It also applies to all courses. So if you're like going to a schoolhouse in the next few weeks, you will have to pass at this new standard immediately.
Regardless of
Um,
compo too, which is wild.
it's crazy.
Good
Um,
luck.
and interestingly, units can initiate separation actions now. There is no delay on that. The only caveat to this is that no separations will be completed. So you can like do all the paperwork and like push people through the requirements and check all the boxes, but no separations will be completed until a 180-day assessment is completed and further guidance is disseminated. So clearly, the Army is
Well,
planning on some further analysis. So they are letting everything happen now. You can get flagged now. You can get dropped from a course now. You can get your PCS stopped now because it's a non-transferable flag. So you're not PCSing if you are flagged for this. The only thing that can't happen immediately is separations to buy them 180 days for that assessment.
I feel like you're opening yourself up to some potential lawsuits.
So if I had to guess, they are expecting some concerns. That is part of why I kind of nudged you on the creating that web form thing, because I think there's a place where we could, I'm sure the Army will be collecting lots of its own data. I was listening to a podcast earlier that Drew recommended with a philosophy professor talking about how metrics can sometimes undermine your real goal. But he made a good point, which is that like the things that matter get translated through stories and relationships, but that requires like interaction with humans. Metrics make you comprehensible immediately and at scale, right? That does not mean they communicate all the things that are important.
It's a great point.
So a place I think we as Mops and Moes can potentially help the Army a little bit is capture and also consolidate together enough compelling stories that we can give them some insight beyond just raw data, because the Army will get all that stuff in ATIS and they will see it. And in ATIS, they are capable of looking at correlations between waist height ratio and AFT score and things like that. But something they can't really do that we can is say, like, here's 10 examples of people who score really well on the Army fitness test, who have like proven themselves in military settings and who are failing your new standard. That's where I think we could assist here a little bit, because I think there are going to be outliers that we need to capture.
I've always thought of us as storytellers, so
That's what we're here for, man.
that's good. Okay, so no separations, 180 days assessment.
I got one I want to talk about.
I was gonna ask you.
I am a little rattled here. Every time we changed the fitness standards, we did like 6-month or year-long adaptation periods. Even when the changes were really small, just like changing the scoring scale or removing the leg tuck or removing the standing power throw, like every time we did a change, we went through this long period where there were no consequences for failure. It's summertime. Advanced camp is happening for ROTC cadets. Lots of cadets are getting dropped from their programs for failing the AFT, when last summer, because we had just updated it by removing the power throw, it didn't matter if you failed the AFT. You continued on. These adaptation periods from COVID until very recently meant that we went like years for some people without taking PT tests that had any real consequences. But we have just proven with body comp that it is in fact possible to say, we made a change, it's effective now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why couldn't we do that with fitness stuff?
We've said that from the start of this podcast. Like, the military is its own little world, and most decisions like are controlled with the flick of the pen. It's just a question of whose pen and how do you convince them to do it. Because case in point, if you want something to happen immediately, it very much can. Now, whether that's going to have positive or negative repercussions, TBD. But wild. It smacks of it smacks of and I don't mean this in any kind of political way. It smacks of somebody or a collection of people who just don't. It's just not how like science works.
So
Maybe.
our I was going to try and save this for like at least halfway through the episode. We're at 28 minutes and 53 seconds of recording right now. So
close enough.
You got decently political almost immediately in the intro.
I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to.
I know.
It just feels like it feels like we're going backwards.
I'm saving my political take a little deeper into the episode, so people who have listened this far at least know that I'm like not here just to stir the pot. But here is my hottest take that I have, and I already put this on Reddit, so people have seen it, and I'm identifiable on Reddit. I'm not anonymous.
You're a Redditor.
Like you clearly don't. You said Reddit was going off about this.
Top
comment. I'm pretty sure the top comment on that Reddit post is me.
Interesting. See, I don't look at usernames. I'm just there for the vibes.
Let me check.
I didn't know you were a Reddit guy. Good for you. Just adding to the discourse in the public forum.
Yeah, the number one comment is from an account named Mops and Moes.
That sounds familiar.
I'm not super hard to find.
Are we as an organization active on Reddit?
I am.
Okay, cool.
You don't do anything with social media, so it's all me.
No, I do get a lot of Reddit though, which is fun. I didn't know you were. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
and I'll provide some preamble for this for people who aren't like knee deep in the politics of Army fitness and body composition. The Army spent a ton of time and a ton of money conducting the Army Comprehensive Body Composition Study. This involved collecting like APFT and ACFT scores. It involved trucking DEXA scan machines around the country to set up different stations where we could do a whole bunch of different body comp methods, comparing bioelectrical impedance, dual X-ray, 3D body scan, old tape test method, proposed new tape test method. This was like researched extensively, looking at injury history of people with different body compositions, where that cutoff was, how body composition interacts with fitness, so we could determine where to set a fitness exemption, like when were you fit enough that we don't need to worry about your body composition. Tons of work went in. It was a huge study. I don't know the budget of the study. You can go read the results of it. We had the primary investigator on the podcast and talked about it. The Army invested in this in a pretty serious way and implemented a revised policy with a new tape test method, with a ACFT and later AFT score-based exemption, as well as if you felt that the tape test method for measuring your body composition was inaccurate, you were allowed to pursue secondary verification measures. I believe the ones authorized, DEXA, BodPod, and InBody 770, if I'm not mistaken.
Not cheap.
So like a little more individualized. And yes, the Army did buy a lot of InBodies to field across the reserve, guard, and active duty force so that we could comply with the new policy.
Wait a second. Pause. Didn't we look at a little bit of controversy around how InBody got that versus we
don't even have time for that controversy. As an unbiased observer wonders why InBody is chosen and not SECA, that produces a product at like equivalent or lower cost and equivalent or better accuracy.
Well, whatever. Now it doesn't matter.
Not my problem.
You don't need them.
Yeah, neither applies now.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the Air Force just implemented a policy where you can do those things.
On top of this?
No, yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're getting there soon, Drew.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
But that brings me to the hottest of my takes.
Here we go.
Which is, and I'll admit that I saw a draft of this policy before it came out. And when I saw that draft, I was like, man, there's no way they're publishing this. This is going to cause so many problems.
Wasn't this in our group chat?
Yeah. And
sometimes we see things, team.
And they did, in fact, publish it as it was when I saw it in draft form. And my read was like, this feels a bit like, and I'm sorry, because I know like people are going to listen to this and get worked up about it. This feels a bit like malicious compliance by the Army, because they are being forced by the War Department to undo something they put a ton of effort into and replace it with something like not nearly as founded in both science and actual assessment of the Army population specifically.
It's a hot take.
like I feel like this policy, and like this is where we get into the 180-day review that they mention. They don't get into a lot of detail about that, but like clearly they're going to be looking at what data comes out of this and what problems get caused, because the way they have rolled this out feels engineered to cause a scene.
Well, I mean, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but like, I don't have the language in front of me, but it's all at commander's discretion.
Yes.
There's like no progression.
So let's back up and get to that.
Okay. Back up.
Because we haven't really even laid out the specifics of the policy, because we're like sidebarring about the politics.
Team, we all sleep. We all conduct a bunch of activities. We all train and we all recover from stress. Teamworks pulls it all together in real-time readiness dashboards, because when data is connected, readiness follows. Visit teamworkstactical.com today to learn more. Team, this episode of Mops and Moes is brought to you by Train Heroic. Train Heroic is a reliable, well-designed platform for programming, tracking, and communicating with athletes. If you've been with us for any length of time, you will know that Train Heroic is the platform that we use to power our own training, long and strong, which you can find at our website, mopsandmoes.com. If you're looking for a solid platform to support your own coaching, whether it's your full-time role or a side hustle, Train Heroic is definitely worth checking out. You can use the link in any of our show notes, you can find it in our newsletter, or you can head to our website, mopsandmoes.com/training, to get your first week for free.
The key thing this does is it makes waist to height ratio the only authorized ABCP standard. The screening tables are gone. So like height, weight tables, not a thing anymore. Secondary or supplemental methods are gone. So DEXA, BodPod, InBody, other tape methods, all gone. The AFT exemption is gone. So there is no AFT score at which you are exempt. And there was some weird language about that in the OSW guidance that we'll get to in a second. 0.55 is now the limit for everyone. Male, female, 20 years old, 60 years old. Doesn't matter. If you're 0.55 or higher, you're out of compliance. If you're under 0.55, if you are at 0.549, you are good to go. That's the standard. That's how it works. It is actually, without talking about the methods,
divided by height, or height
Correct.
divided by, waist divided by.
I'll have an Instagram post out within the next day or two. I'll probably in that post put like, if you are this tall, you have this maximum waist measurement. It's not hard math, but people still like having a chart for some reason.
Decimals freak people out, man.
And the reason I stopped Drew there, which we'll get to now, is that I think we need to talk about ways in which this new Army guidance slightly conflicts with the Office of the Secretary of War's guidance. So, the first one, and the most obvious one by far, in my opinion, is like, we didn't have to do it this way, is that, and I'm going to quote from the Sec War memo, members who have waist to height ratio of 0.55 or above will be further evaluated by a body fat calculation. The Army is explicitly not doing that. Like, this isn't one where it's like a gray area. War Department says use weight to height ratio as your initial standard. If they fail that, services get some say in what the second order way we calculate is. They could easily have said the secondary method is the method we had until the 7th. So like if you like fail on waist height ratio, our backup method is single site tape based on Army Comprehensive Body Composition Study. Could have done that. Like that was within the guidance. That leads me to my like hot take. Second conflict with the Sec War memo, and this is not nearly as like political or weird. I don't think it's actually that big a deal, but we will talk about cases where it could be. Sec War guidance says actually, I think this wasn't from the Sec War memo. This is from the Undersecretary memo. Waist circumference should be measured with a measuring tape parallel to the floor at the midpoint between the last palpable rib and the top of the iliac crest, which is typically at or just above the belly button. That's a quote. Army says measure waist at the navel. Those things tend to be correlated pretty well. I was just looking on myself right before we recorded. My navel is actually almost dead even with the top of my iliac crest. So it's not halfway. It's at the very bottom of that range.
I think mine's between.
I've done an annoying amount of tape tests working in military fitness.
Sitting down,
A
though.
lot of people tend to be pretty middle,
This
but
is the first time in 3 or 4 years that we've both just been like messing with our belly buttons while
literally
talking.
navel gazing.
Yeah. Just two old men touching our belly buttons. Anyway.
This was observed to me earlier today because I didn't really think about it. I have done a lot of tape tests, but because I am a man, I can only tape test other men. And so I don't actually know from anything objective how consistently true that is for women.
Most women have belly buttons. I can tell you that.
I don't know how consistently their belly buttons are within an inch or so of the halfway point between the top of their iliac crest and their lowest palpable rib. I will also say
that's not the best opening line.
No, it's not. Sorry.
Hey, where's your belly button relative to your
iliac crest?
Iliac crest, your lowest palpable rib.
I will say,
get out of my face.
Inner rater reliability, a lot better with navel because you can see it. It's an easy landmark. With lowest palpable rib and iliac crest, you have to explain to people what the iliac crest is, how to find it. Lowest palpable rib. Palpable is pretty subjective. And like as people get fatter, it's going to be harder to palpate ribs, right? Like
palpate means touch, team.
Yep.
The lowest rib you can feel.
Yeah. So that's a little subjective there. Frankly, when I do these, I ask the person to point on their own body where their iliac crest is and where their lowest rib is. And I just trust them and measure halfway between those two because I don't feel like poking around in somebody's hips.
Palpating.
So I do understand why you would pick measure at the navel. It's just simpler. It was also validated in the Army Comprehensive Body Composition Study as a pretty decent landmark for this stuff. But it just creates one more situation where it can throw people off. And I think I said this at the top, but like navel height relative to hips, particularly in women, particularly in postpartum women, is going to play a significant role in whether they pass or fail on this one.
Do you know if you have an Audi, do you measure from the top or the bottom?
It's not specified.
Like outliers. Like, is it the top of your belly button, the middle, the bottom?
Good. Or do you does it have to go over the Audi? Because that's going to add
that's going to add. Exactly.
Yeah. Good question.
I'm just getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
It's kind of a gross way to describe belly buttons.
Fair question.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to call out to the people here. If you have an Audi and you've experienced struggles with this type of thing in the military, please reach out.
Drew, you can put that in the data form we're going to have on the website, like a checkbox for any of your, like a drop-down selection.
Any of your Audi. Oh, man. That's wild. Who would have thought?
One that Reddit keyed in on heavily that I didn't get that worked up about. The Army says on the new 5500 to round height up to the nearest 1/2 inch and waist down to the nearest 1/2 inch. Undersecretary's memo says round down on both. So the Army is actually a little bit more generous on height than the War Department is. I thought that was interesting.
Interesting.
But that brings me to like the case where I think like fuzzy language caused a problem for us. And I apologize in advance for people who aren't like, I spend a lot of time on memos. I'm going to admit that right now. I've done multiple memos in the last day, 2 days.
Loves a memo. Loves a memo.
I hate
writing memos or reading memos?
Both, but I'm only counting writing memos. I've written multiple memos in the last 24 hours.
I feel like Claude could do that for you.
Probably. So the Secretary of War's memo says, and I quote, high performers on fitness tests may be granted exemptions, but only within defined limits. High performance does not excuse noncompliance with body composition standards.
There's a lot of Samoan rugby players that would disagree with that sentence. But
well, what I'll say first off is that those sentences do seem to contradict each other.
Yeah.
You can be granted exemptions, but you cannot be excused. I'm guessing if I went on Google and asked for like synonyms for excusal, I would find exemption because they are kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But we'll set that aside for a second because the undersecretary published his memo with more specific guidance, and the language changed just slightly, but in a way that matters. Only one word changed.
You were the weeds, huh?
This is the memo game, folks. Quote from the undersecretary memo: high performers on fitness tests may be granted allowances, but only within defined limits and as prescribed by each military service. So instead of exemption, he said allowance. With that, me trying to interpret that, I could see that being like an extended scale, maybe. Like, does that mean
for every point on your AFT above a certain number, you can subtract half an inch from your tape?
So who knows what that means?
That's what an allowance would be by definition.
Either way, the Army just said no more exemption.
Which is wild, because that was, I think, one of the better things that they implemented. It literally makes a lot of sense.
It solves the issue in a like field expedient and performance oriented way, right? Like, it doesn't require a DEXA. It doesn't require an InBody 770. It doesn't require these like invasive methods. It's just saying like, hey, and based on science, like based on the information we have about injury rates, about like cardiometabolic risk factors, all these things, we say that like at this threshold of performance, we're not as concerned about your body composition because we're becoming more confident that a large percentage of your mass is lean mass.
Well, not even that, but just like it creates its own contradiction, because if a performance test, an AFT, to use that example, is designed to, and we've talked about this before, like what is it truly doing? But, per the language, if it's designed to showcase whether or not you're lethal, like if you can perform well on that, you've figured out how to move your body through space, regardless of what you look like. And in this case, what this is effectively saying is we don't actually care how you perform. We're more interested in how you look. And that, I mean, to put it relatively bluntly, that's kind of like an insane, that's why I say we're kind of rolling that back. To me, like not being able to refer to an InBody or a DEXA or like technology, whatever, but like to eliminate what, in my opinion, is probably the most progressive part of Army body composition, which is, hey, if you can perform at a high enough level, it doesn't matter how you look. Now we literally are more concerned with the image than the performance, like per the memo, unless I'm misreading that.
It's hard to argue with what you said.
Thank you.
I will acknowledge that, like I said at the top, there is research to back up the relationship between waist-height ratio and cardiometabolic risk factors. So it's not like completely appearance-based.
Do you think Aaron Donald would not perform well in combat?
I'm going to have to admit, I don't know who Aaron Donald is.
NFL, defensive end, freak athlete. Okay, Myles Garrett. Let me throw that one at you.
I didn't look at defensive ends. If you want to, you can right now. I did look at this earlier today. Google like body composition of NFL linemen. Numerous studies have been done. There is a distinctly like over 20% of NFL linemen have metabolic syndrome.
Sure. He is not what I would call your normal NFL. I'm going to give you his height and weight really quickly. 6'1", 280.
Sure.
Visible abs.
Yep.
Shredded. Fails Army height weight.
Does he? What's his waist?
I don't know him personally, but I can try and figure that out.
We got to find out.
Now, you keep talking. I'll find that out.
And like maybe we need to like get in touch with some like NFL people to get some of these body composition measures. But I will tell you, like a more normal NFL lineman, right, probably isn't going to perform well in combat because they probably are going to be pretty fucked up if you ask them to cover many miles at a slow pace rather than a few feet at an extremely rapid pace.
Google AI. Aaron Donald's exact waist size is not officially listed, but custom suit tailors have noted that he possesses an extreme V-taper physique.
So he's probably passing.
I hope so, because if he's not, he'll beat the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
The last thing I was going to say on your previous comment is that like whether we like it or not, appearance is a factor that matters for the military.
Yeah, I
It
agree.
always has been, always will be.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
This kind of just says the quiet part out loud, I think. Not to mention the fact that your commander can basically do whatever with
So
you.
that does bring us to the next portion of this, which I think is interesting. There is no more requirement to designate an NCO for the Army Body Composition Program. Commanders are now directly responsible. I find that language a little weird because at the end of the day, like basically every program in the Army is a commander's program. We still designate NCOs or junior officers to execute those programs, even though the commander is held responsible.
It's called delegating.
Like you're going to have to, like you just do, like delegation is a thing you have to do, right?
Unless they're expecting commanders themselves to measure these people, which I don't think it's happening.
And because this new method doesn't tie directly to an estimated body fat percentage, we can no longer do the progression model we had under the old ABCP. So progression requirement, under the old program, you get enrolled in ABCP because you failed the standard. You can stay in, you're flagged, but you stay in as long as you are making progress towards getting back in compliance. Those progression requirements are gone now. Monthly measurements are no longer required once you're enrolled. It is now entirely up to commanders and supervisors, like how often when they measure you during that process and whether they think you're making good enough progress or whether they start separation proceedings. It is complete commander's discretion.
You know, I didn't like that at first. I think I like that more.
On a very superficial level, I like it. On a separations have to pass through legal basis, it's going to be really hard.
That is true.
To like process these separations. And like, who knows? They've already said there's going to be a 180-day review and there's going to be like additional guidance that comes with that on how separations are actually processed. I bet we see some substantive procedural changes after 180 days.
I mean, you'd have to. But the biggest on the ground issue with ABCP, from what I have seen, is that you have those progression standards and people just kind of disappear into this and it just flounders. Nobody goes anywhere.
So I'm actually going to get very direct on that topic because you, in your day job, are responsible for an Army brigade.
I'm not responsible. I mean, like I have a commander who's responsible.
Sure. Given your position though, and you can estimate this number if you want to protect the innocent or whatever, but
I think I know this number because I was just in meetings about this number.
How many people in your brigade are on the Army Body Composition Program?
I will stay vague and tell you that it is fewer than should be.
Interesting. Fewer than if they were testing honestly would actually be on it?
Yeah, fewer than meet the eye test.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So I think a few things would be interesting to people. There is no Army level tracking of ABCP enrollments. Yes, higher echelons could search by flag codes. But like if you ask a division how many people across the division are on ABCP, the answer is likely we don't know. And if you ask at the brigade level how many people are on ABCP, you might get very different answers depending on whether you look at like what the slides say or how many people are actually flagged for it.
Correct.
And there's an integrity check in this process, right? Like a good way to get off of ABCP is for your leadership to just forget to measure you 1 month.
And then you start all the way over.
You start all the way over.
It's wild.
So like this whole commander's discretion thing has always been largely the case, right? Like I think anybody who's been in a unit for more than a day has seen that like if a soldier's considered like a valuable asset to the organization, the way they're treated in ABCP might look a little different than a soldier who's a problem. And
the way they're treated in every aspect is.
Yes. So I don't like, it's much more like overt that it's pure commander's discretion now. But I don't think that's that different from the reality of how it's been.
And that's why I think on paper at first I was like, this seems dicey. Like commanders will just preserve the people they like and push out the ones that they don't. But to your point, it is a very fragile program as it currently exists. And if you do miss one, like And that's where I think we have an issue. And I think about this with like H2F specifically, because you have all of the resources that you would think would help soldiers succeed in this type of program. But again, to your point, like figuring out who those soldiers are is impossible. And then you compare that, and this isn't a bash on any particular brigade. This is just Army wide. It's military. It's United States wide. You compare that to what you see when you walk around. You're like, how is this? How are you not like? What are you doing here? So I think that there's some goodness in this. It's just it's a dicey way to go about it, I think.
I'll also throw one out. I've seen this across 2 different services now because I've worked in different services. Like master sergeants and above and lieutenant colonels and above mysteriously gaining like a half inch or an inch of height.
Yeah.
And they always happen to gain that half inch or an inch right when they need it to just barely pass.
Or to get on a roller coaster.
So there's always been a little bit of fuzziness.
Yeah. Babe, I swear I'm 6 feet.
Honest.
We've been fudging height forever. Reddit comments. You're the Redditor.
I did scrub through there to see what the people were talking about. So I grabbed a few that I thought were worth discussing here. One, I think it's worth addressing. I have posted before and said publicly before many times, under the old system, there is no such thing as failing height and weight. Height and weight is a screening table. You can only pass or fail on the tape test. But as we all know, there is stigma associated with getting taped. So a lot of people are embarrassed when the height weight screening tables say you are in the category that has to get taped. Mm-hmm. That is now gone. Everybody gets taped. So if a primary concern for you was the tape test stigma, we have solved that.
Boom. Put that in the green box.
100%. I think we already addressed the commander discretion one of like whether or not to chapter, and that's gonna be really, really hard for lawyers to navigate. I think we've already addressed that sufficiently. I just am going to predict right now that 180-day review will likely involve some sort of subsequent adjustment to the policy that it gives more specific guidance for what the process is for people who are 0.55 or over.
I mean, how do you like? I agree with you. I'm curious what that's going to look like, because that seems to be the calling card of this new philosophy. Like, commanders have total discretion. We don't have the progression anymore. Like, go crazy. Interestingly, that's also the most like challenging from like a legal standpoint, because like you said, if they like you, you stay in. If they don't, you're out. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know.
But we achieve that in other places with just like paper trails of counselings. Like,
true.
They could just say you have to back it up with counselings.
So in that, I mean, you've kind of inadvertently created just like way more work.
Potentially. Who knows?
We'll see. 180 days.
There are debates in the Reddit comments about whether this new standard is extremely generous or not. I think in most cases, for most people, this new standard is probably more generous than the previous standard was. Like on average, I think that is the case. I think you're going to see, like we mentioned at the top, a lot of people who, like maybe they were on ABCP on Monday of this week, but because the standards changed, now they're passing. I think you're going to see a lot of that. People are allowed to discuss what they think that means about whether this new standard is more lenient or less lenient. Hard to say without more specific numbers. But there are certainly outliers. I did see a guy on Reddit saying he's 5'9", 160 pounds, and has never had a waist narrower than 38 inches, which means he would fail.
I'm gonna need to see pictures.
Dude, that's kind of what I said. I am 5'10".
Wild.
I am 5'10", and as of yesterday, I think I was like just over 160. So I'm an inch taller and the same weight. I measured myself exactly at the navel, and I was 31 inches, which is like, I wear a size 30 pants. I can pull off 28 if I have to. So I'm a little bit wider at the navel than I am where my pants sit. But like 7 more inches wider, that's a...
I'm trying to picture what that individual looks like.
You see, Noah Olson from CrossFit, right?
That's kind of what I'm picturing.
That's what I'm picturing.
Like dense
Like
as shit.
real wide midsection.
Real wide.
So who knows?
Like not a V-taper, to use the Aaron Donald reference. You are a 30. You're 5'10". I'm 40 pounds heavier.
Dang.
And 1 inch taller.
I fluctuate between 160 and the heaviest I've been 175 before, but usually I fluctuate between 160 and 170.
You know what we call that, right?
Victim weight.
Victim weight. Yeah.
You
can run though. You can run.
No, I can't. Yes, sure, I can run. And I think I think I am on occasion surprisingly strong for my size.
Relative to the people you're around, or just in general?
My deadlift max within the last couple months is 405. I think for a guy who weighs 160, 405 is pretty decent.
It's pretty good.
For a guy who weighs 160, runs 15 miles a week, still pulling off 405 deadlift. Like it's no Alec Lennis numbers of being both strong and fast, but respectable.
Yeah.
What I will throw out, he knows he has an invite to the podcast, and I'm sorry for like sharing a little bit of his stuff, but I think people know this. I'll keep it anonymous. You're going to know who it is, but the audience either already knows everything about the situation or won't know. Prospective guest for the podcast has been going through cancer treatment for like a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, as he gets to the end of like going through multiple surgeries, years of chemo, radiation, like having like bags attached to his body that are like pumping chemicals through him all the time, like just like devastating stuff, bottomed out at his lowest weight in that whole process at 20 pounds heavier than I currently am. Like, ridiculous. Maybe more than that. I don't even know if he even got under 200 in that whole process. That's how much like muscle he was carrying around.
I love that. And I know he probably rubbed that in too.
He didn't even mean to have it be mean. He's such a nice guy. He wasn't trying to like get me with it.
That's the worst though. That's what hurts the worst. When it's your loved ones. It's like, hey, I'm weak and I'm small, but I'm not as small as you. Savage.
Oh God.
38 inches at 160. That's insane.
That's a crazy measurement.
I want to figure out how that individual buys pants, because I don't know if they make.
You've gotten us back on track, which is what I want to say is I'm sure over the coming weeks and months we are going to see examples of these proportions. And that's what I'm going to ask the audience. I don't know how long it'll take Drew and I to get the like data collection form on the website. We will work on that. But if you just want to like submit your story, and especially if you are willing to like best case scenario, you're willing to attach your name and your identity to the story, and we can just like overtly talk about it.
Send pics.
So that's the next piece, right? Like with or without your face, we can keep it anonymous if you want. But like if you can send pictures,
please wear clothes.
We can like I'm willing to go with shirtless for guys.
Sure,
but like
I just wanted you to say that, not me.
Yeah. But I think it's necessary to like put this in people's face that like I'm confident that out there somewhere is somebody like jacked and shredded and fit who is failing this new standard just because they have a different shaped body than some people. And I think that's why you need those secondary assessment methods if they believe the approved method is not accurate for them.
Or a PT exemption.
Yes.
What was the shirt we were going to make?
Oh, I should put this in the show notes. I don't have it immediately accessible here.
I'll pull it up on our text.
I'll see if I can find it, but it wasn't referenced directly in the Army Directive. But I'll see if I can find it quickly.
I'm holding it up on the camera for people.
Composition. It's been on the story of the Instagram. That's what Drew's showing you there. The Army put out a video. And let's see, can I pull it up here?
It's got real like Tron Legacy vibes.
It is interesting. I've got it up here. It's on Divids. I'll link to it. It's the Army Updates Body Composition.
Delts.
God damn it. It is the Digital Visual Information Distribution System.
Yep.
Your PAO knows what it is. A lot of other people might not, but it's where all the armies, like or all the defense departments or war departments, digital media goes. The pictures, the videos, the articles, the graphics, the whatever, it all goes here. So I'll link to it. They have a video explaining the updates to the Army Body Composition Program. And interestingly, I'm going to click on this and let it get started. I'll mute it though. The video alludes to some things that are not actually in the guidance they have published. So that's funky, but like most notable in that is that they have tiers. If you are 0.55 or above, your body composition is unacceptable. If you are 0.549 down to 0.5 exactly, your body composition is considered acceptable. So like we're now tiering out body composition. If you are below 0.5, your body composition is excellent.
And it glows.
Well, each of them, the picture I posted shows the green glowing. They make each one glow as they talk about it.
Oh, I thought,
yeah,
I thought just excellent was glowing, which was awesome.
But I will shout out. First, I'll say two things. For those watching the video, which I think is a minority of listeners, Drew was just struggling for the last 2 minutes trying to get his camera. Once he tried to show the close up of his phone on the camera, the focus shifted too far. And so he was blurry for the last minute. And it was really funny as I was just trying to talk while he was trying to get his camera to adjust.
But see, listeners wouldn't have known that because that's how dialed we are.
Right.
You just carry on as I'm out of focus.
But what I find interesting, the fact that it's a red, amber, green scale is very Army of them, but it implies that body composition is a linear thing where like lower waist height ratio is always better.
Not true.
There is such a thing as being too skinny and like not carrying enough mass for your height, right? Like higher body mass individuals tend to perform better on almost every soldier task we simulate or test. So like I saw the question, I read it, like, do we just not care about underweight people anymore? Seems like we just don't. We never really did in the first place. But it is interesting to see it like if somebody's at 0.52, like if you got two people's evaluations next to each other and they're identical in every way, they've had the same positions, performed exactly the same way, same PT score, same marksmanship qualification, and one person has a waist height ratio of 0.52 in the acceptable category, and the other guy has a 0.48 in the excellent category, are we treating that as higher performance? Because I don't think we should.
Yeah. I mean, again, PT test solves for this.
It really does. And like we're taking a measurement that is intentionally designed to be used at the population level to like assess risk factors. And we are trying to apply it at the individual level. Yes, it's better than BMI, but it is not so much better than BMI that we aren't going to run into some pretty obvious outliers.
It's definitely not better than a DEXA or an InBody.
No.
What is left?
Just a quick mini review. I'll put some links in the show notes if I decide to take the time between now and Saturday night where I have to have all this done for it to publish on Sunday morning. But just to acknowledge some of the research that's out there and quote it briefly, because I think some of this stuff is interesting and relevant. Ashwell and colleagues, 2012, published an article titled "Waist to Height Ratio is a Better Screening Tool Than Waist Circumference and BMI for Adult Cardiometabolic Risk Factors." Notice they said better screening tool. Mm-hmm. Like the waist height ratio itself does not diagnose anything, but it is a helpful screening tool to know who to further test. They said waist height ratio improved discrimination by 4 to 5% over BMI. Shows the superiority of waist height ratio over just waist circumference or just BMI for detecting cardiometabolic risk factors in both sexes. Just laying out, there is science behind this kind of stuff, but science of using it as a screening, not the only test.
For populations.
Yep. Browning and colleagues, 2010, published an article titled "A Systematic Review of Waist Height Ratio as a Screening Tool for the Prediction of Cardiovascular Disease and Diabetes." They state in the title, 0.5 could be a suitable global boundary value, not 0.55, 0.5. But once again, they're calling it a screening tool. Quotes from that article: boundary values for waist height ratio were 0.5 for men and 0.5 for women, and that it was stronger than and independent of BMI. more recently, we have Des Fooley and colleagues. They published an article titled Waist to Height Ratio as a Simple Tool for Predicting Mortality. And unlike Browning and colleagues, they said the most common characterizations among reference studies considered waist height ratio of greater than 0.55. So all that to say, this has been studied, not necessarily in military populations specifically. These were all Gen Pop. 2 of the articles were published in obesity reviews. One of the articles was published in nutrition research. So they were not looking at like athletic performance. They were not looking at like muscular high performance people. They were looking at like predicting cardiometabolic disease in general population, figuring out what the risk factors are. You could set the threshold at 0.55 like the Army has done. You could set the threshold at 0.50. But in every case, none of these people are saying, if you are above that number, you have a problem. They are saying, if you are above that number, odds are higher that you have a problem. We need to do something to check.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think both Drew and I would probably fall on the side of keep some type of fitness exemption, keep some type of second order, more accurate, individualized assessment, BodPod, InBody, DEXA, whatever. And we'll see. We'll see in the next 180 days how many problems emerge. We'll see how many people get attention brought to their stories or send us their stories. And hopefully we'll have something up on our website soon to collect data on this for people who want to chip in their information.
I just think keeping a fitness exemption is the cleanest way to maintain like a performance orientation. And I say that because I have seen folks who are kind of on the limit pursue higher levels of fitness in order to get that number on their PT test so that they are exempt from the measurement. And if that's not the kind of culture you're trying to create, I don't really know what is. And to eliminate that, I'm curious. Yeah, as we collect these stories and this information, I'm curious how many folks are performing at a high level but aren't passing this random.
I'll throw out a confounding
number.
factor for you there. I would be more okay with the fitness exemption if we had not made so many modifications to then the ACFT, now the AFT,
Sure,
that you can get away with a pretty low level of cardiorespiratory fitness and still score highly. I would suggest that either tightening up the run standards a little bit, especially on the passing end, not necessarily the maxing end, and or the return of the leg tuck or some type of exercise that assesses strength to weight ratio. Pull-up could also fit in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think reintroducing one or both of those things, I would be a lot more comfortable with the fitness exemption. But either way.
So what you're saying
is
a place. They could use our test.
They could.
They could use the FAT.
Drew, for those who are not every week listeners of the podcast, what is our test?
We continue to plug the FAT, the fitness aptitude test.
Very simple.
None of those letters are lowercase. Very straightforward acronym. It is max pull-ups. No, it's deadlift first. No, it's max pull-ups.
Deadlift first. Yeah.
Deadlift first. Max deadlift. Max pull-ups, and then a 5-mile run.
Yep.
That's it. And if you can pass that test, then your body composition shouldn't matter.
We never really established passing standards though, did we?
Well, we wanted to do Z-scores.
Yeah. The whole idea is we'll like collect scores from a bunch of people and like see where you are as a percentile in your demographic.
Yeah. We'll get there.
One day we should establish like just basic passing standards and then like targets to aim for, but
we could just kind of make it up. That seems to be something that people do with these kinds of things. But as we've seen, you can make change. You can make change quickly. You can implement things and make them happen. And that is why, team, we published this episode this week, because what did Bob Dylan say, Alex?
I do not know what reference you're trying to make right now.
Bob Dylan, change. Come on.
God.
The times, they're a
changing. I know.
Team.
I don't. I trust you. I trust you on closers. I trust you on closers. I don't know if that was it.
Well, Sam Cooke said, what did he say? Let me get his quote. Change is going to come, but change is already here. So you know, he also said nothing can change this love. Speaking of the love reference in our last episode. Team, thanks for hanging out. Stay healthy, stay thin, apparently, and see you next week.
Hey, Alex, let's cover our ass real quick.
Oh, great idea, Drew. All right, guys. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Before you go, please rate and review the pod on the listening platform of your choice. You can also visit us on our website at www.mopsinmos.com. That's mops, the letter N, mos.com. You can check out the library of podcast episodes, our latest blog entries, any helpful resources, and also sign up for our newsletter.
Drew nailed it. Just to underline a couple of things, the podcast entries have in-depth show notes on the website. So if you missed anything or you want to read any of the research we talk about, it is all there. You can, at the bottom of the website, sign up with your email and receive future updates from us. The blog posts go a little bit more in depth in kind of written form on a couple of topics we get questions about all the time. But most importantly, I just want to ask all you guys, our best way the word gets out is absolutely word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell the people you work with, anybody you think would find it useful. Thanks for spreading the word.
If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot us an email at either Drew or Alex at mopsinmos.com.
Or there's a contact form on the website.
Thank you.
If you're on a human performance team, you know how it goes. 9 or 10 platforms, spreadsheets, Facebook groups, Signal chats. Teamworks replaces all of it with one secure, centralized communication system built for distributed military teams. To learn more, visit teamworkstactical.com today.